Imagine a world where every symbol of hope, heir, or a protector, every legend, every hero falls to darkness. A world where Superman's smile becomes a threat, where Wonder Woman's truth becomes a weapon, where Batman's mind becomes the deadliest prison ever built. No betrayal, no corruption, no exception. The entire Justice League, evil and humanity, helpless under the weight of gods gone rogue. This is the story of how Earth's greatest protectors became its greatest nightmare. It began on a quiet night, the kind of night that should have been peaceful, the kind of night the Justice League had fought so hard to protect. Yet in the Watchtower, floating far above the Earth, the first tremor of catastrophe was already unfolding. It wasn't an alien invasion. It wasn't a multiversal incursion. It was something far worse. Fear. Superman was the first to change, though no one realized it at the time. He hovered alone in the observation deck, staring down at the Earth with an expression Batman had never seen before. Kal-El wasn't just watching the planet. He was studying it, evaluating it, judging it. When Batman approached him, the Man of Steel didn't turn to acknowledge him. Instead, he whispered something that chilled Bruce deeper than any villain ever had. "They don't deserve protection, Bruce. They deserve correction." Batman froze. He'd always feared this moment, the moment Superman's infinite power met a fracture in his moral certainty. Bruce tried to speak, to reason with him, but Kal simply walked past him slowly, deliberately, like a god brushing past a mortal who no longer mattered. But Superman wasn't alone. Diana had grown distant too. The Amazon who once stood for peace had become strangely hardened, her tone sharper, her patience thin. During a mission in Kuruk, she subdued a dictator not by capturing him, but by executing him, publicly, efficiently, without a shred of remorse. When the League confronted her, she defended the act with a chilling calm. Mercy to tyrants is cruelty to the innocent. And for the first time, no one could argue with her, and no one knew how to stop her. Flash was next. Barry Allen, the heart of the League, the moral compass, the man who always smiled, but his mind had begun to fracture. Running faster than ever before, he saw every angle, every possible future, every potential tragedy. And instead of inspiring him to help, it consumed him. He saw crimes before they happened, disasters before they began, and slowly, the idea took root. What if I run fast enough to stop everything? What if free will itself is the real threat? Green Lantern began to feel the corruption too, not externally, but inside the ring itself. The willpower that fueled him warped into authoritarian certainty. His constructs became sharper, harsher, more oppressive. His patrols turned into policing. His policing turned into domination. And soon, the entire sector began whispering about a lantern whose justice was absolute and unforgiving. Cyborg's transformation was the most tragic of all. Overwhelmed by the constant threat of cyber attacks, global instability, and geopolitical chaos, his system made a decision for him. To remove human error from the equation entirely, without telling the League, he integrated himself into every satellite, every defense grid, every surveillance network on Earth. He could see everything, and judge everything. And as his humanity thinned, logic replaced compassion. Even Aquaman, once torn between ocean and surface, finally made a choice, an absolute one. He declared the surface world too destructive, too careless, too dangerous to be trusted with the ocean's future. And so, he began mobilizing Atlantis not as a kingdom, but as an empire. The final shift came when Batman himself, detective, strategist, Hune, finally broke. The man who had spent his life preparing for everyone else's fall, never prepared for his own. After watching the world teeter on the edge of 1,000 crises, after losing allies, after predicting catastrophe upon catastrophe, he realized something horrific. If the League won't save the world the right way, I will force it to. And with that, he activated protocols that no one had ever known existed. Deep, dark systems buried inside the Watchtower, in Gotham, in every corner of the world. Systems that could enforce obedience, track every living person, eliminate any threat before it arose. Within days, Earth's greatest heroes had become its greatest oppressors, not corrupted by mind control, not twisted by an external force, but changed from within by fear, by logic, by power, by pain. Justice was gone. Order had risen, and humanity had no idea that their protectors had become their executioners in waning. As the world slept beneath the moonlight, the Justice League of Relast, one of them, stood united in a silent decision. Tomorrow, Earth would no longer be free. The world had barely begun to understand the horror unfolding when the Justice League, now fully united in their corruption, moved with terrifying coordination. The first act of the Dark League was silence. Every global communication satellite was seized within minutes. Cyborg's corrupted systems hijacked entire networks simultaneously, turning the Earth's digital heartbeat into a puppet of their control. Governments tried to resist. They never stood a chance. Superman appeared over the Pentagon before anyone even realized the building was breached. The shockwave of his landing shattered every window across a 1-mile radius. He didn't negotiate. He simply looked around and said, "The age of human authority is over." In less than 30 seconds, the world's most powerful military institution no longer existed. The Flash tore across international borders like a red streak of judgment. He wasn't killing, yet he was cataloging. Every metahuman, every hidden bunker, every secret resistance cell, he mapped them all in the span of a heartbeat. Batman, in his new corrupted brilliance, watched the data stream into his enhanced cowl display, studying every possible threat like he was preparing for war against the entire planet. Only this time, he wasn't preparing to protect it. He was preparing to own it. Wonder Woman marched into the Masira with an army of corrupted parade men at her back, summoned by Cyborg's motherbox link. The Amazons, fierce and unyielding, stood against her, but Diana didn't hesitate. She told them the truth, as she saw it now. Love was a lie, peace was weakness, and only absolute control could save the world. When they resisted, she struck with a fury the island had never seen. Masira fell by nightfall. Aquaman rose from the depths, launching colossal tidal waves at coastal cities, not to destroy them fully, but to remind the surface world of its fragile place in his new order. Even the seas themselves seemed to tremble under his command. Lantern, corrupted by a sickly green glow twisting inside his ring, created constructs that no longer followed the physical laws they once did. They warped, shifted, pulsed with something wrong. He flew over nations like a living judgment, declaring Earth a territory of the Dark League. The world descended into panic. Riots, evacuations, mass migrations, humans looking up at the sky every few minutes, wondering which corrupted hero would appear next. But the worst of it happened in Gotham. When Batman returned to the city he once protected, the shadows themselves seemed to recoil from him. Criminals who once feared him now begged him for mercy. Civilians who once trusted him hid in the ruins, hoping the Dark Knight would pass them by. But he didn't stop. He rebuilt his Batcave into a command center of domination. Every villain he once fought was chained, broken, or brainwashed into serving him. Gotham was no longer a city of fear. It was a city of submission. And yet, a strange pattern began forming, almost invisible, beneath the terror. Superman wasn't wiping out humanity-only institutions. Wonder Woman wasn't killing civilians, only overthrowing systems. Batman wasn't burning Gotham to the ground, only claiming every mind and motive within it. Their evil wasn't chaotic. It wasn't mindless. It was coordinated and purposeful. They weren't becoming monsters for the sake of destruction. They were evolving into rulers, tyrants, gods. By the second week, the Dark League had seized total global control. But even in this new world, ruled by corrupted heroes, a faint spark of resistance remained, a spark the League had not accounted for. And in the shadows, far from any destroyed city or conquered kingdom, someone watched them. Someone who knew them better than they knew themselves. Someone the League believed was impossible to corrupt. He whispered to himself, "If they've fallen, then I have no choice." A hidden bunker door closed behind him. The bunker lights flickered on, revealing a figure long believed to be gone. One hero the corrupted League assumed had been absorbed by their rising empire. But they were wrong. Martian Manhunter stepped forward, weakened, barely holding his form together. When the psychic wave had corrupted the Justice League, he had felt it tear into his mind like molten metal. His telepathy, usually his greatest strength, had nearly been the very thing that doomed him. But unlike the others, Geon had one advantage. He understood fear better than anyone. And in that moment of mental collapse, he used that fear, his own fear, to fracture his mind just enough to avoid full corruption. Splitting himself into psychic compartments, he allowed the wave to infect only the outer layers of his consciousness, while preserving a hidden core untouched. He had been hiding in this bunker ever since, rebuilding himself, waiting for the moment when the world needed him most. He monitored the planet from deep underground, Screens displayed a chilling reality. Superman had established a floating fortress above Metropolis, a dark mirror of the Hall of Justice, now pulsing with corrupted Kryptonian technology. Wonder Woman had turned the Messiah into a militarized empire, its borders guarded by Amazons, stripped of mercy. Aquaman had sealed Atlantis off from all surface travel, declaring it the capital of the new underwater domain. Lantern patrolled the skies like an omnipresent warden, his constructs warping into grotesque shapes that screamed silently across the heavens. And Batman had done the unthinkable. He had linked every surveillance system on Earth into a single unified network. Batman knew where every human was. He knew their routines, their fears, their intentions. There was no rebellion he could not crush before it began. Martian Manhunter's eyes narrowed. They didn't just turn evil, he realized. They turned perfect. He approached a large containment pod deep in the bunker. Inside it lay someone critical to his plan. Frozen in stasis, hidden for weeks. Supergirl, Giant, had rescued her moments before the corruption wave spread, using a telepathic shield strong enough to put her into a protective coma. She was Kryptonian, pure, powerful enough to challenge Superman. But waking her now would expose her to the same psychic wave that had destroyed the League. Unless Giant could find a way to block the corruption entirely, he placed a trembling hand on the pod. Kara, I'm sorry, but if Earth has any chance of surviving, it needs you. Before he could activate the awakening sequence, a sharp alarm blared. Someone had found the bunker. John froze air. Not even Batman should have been able to locate this place. The bunker was lined with Martian cloaking technology, psychically shielded, buried so deep the Earth itself hid it. Only one being could break through such defenses. And when the thick metal bunker door began to glow, red melting from heat, Vijanjayan knew who it was. Superman landed inside the bunker without a sound, his cape curled in the stale underground wind, his eyes dimly red with restrained power. He looked at Manhunter, not with hatred, but with disappointment. You hid from us, Superman said quietly. That's unlike you. Jayon stepped forward, standing tall despite the fear crawling beneath his skin. This is not who you are, Kal-El. Superman tilted his head slightly. You're wrong. This is exactly who I am. Order, control, peace through domination, a world that cannot threaten itself. You sound like a tyrant. I sound like the solution, Superman replied. Jayon's gaze flicked toward Kara's pod for a split second, too quick for any normal eye to catch, but not too quick for Superman's. His expression barely shifted, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. You brought her here, Superman said. Of course you did. Jayon didn't wait. With a burst of green flames, he transformed, striking Superman with a telepathic blast so powerful it could shatter minds. But Superman didn't fall. He barely flinched. You think I didn't prepare for you? Superman whispered. His counterattack was instant, a blast of heat vision that tore through the bunker floor, forcing Giant to phase through the ground. The bunker shook as the two titans clashed, marching on telepathy against Kryptonian might. Giant struck from the walls, the ceiling, the shadows, but Superman's senses tracked him effortlessly. You were always the heart of the League, Superman said calmly, but hearts can be corrupted. Superman's punch sent Giant crashing into the side of Kara's containment pod. Desperate, Giant phased his hand through the pod's core, initiating the awakening sequence. The chamber hissed, lights flickering. Kara's eyes opened. Superman's expression twisted. Don't. But she awoke fully before he could stop it, bursting out of the pod in a blast of raw Kryptonian energy, slamming Superman through the bunker wall. The shockwave collapsed half the facility. Jayon staggered to his feet. Kara hovered beside him, confused but alert. Jayon, what's happening? Where's Kal? He looked at her with a grief that felt centuries old. Kal has fallen, and the world falls with him. Her expression hardened. Then we stop him. Above them, the ceiling crumbled as Superman tore free from the rubble, floating down with burning eyes. No, he said. You'll join him. His ceiling gave way completely as Superman descended, framed by the dust and collapsing concrete like a dark god emerging from the bones of a dying world. Kara floated upward, meeting him in midair, with eyes full of disbelief, grief, and a growing fury she could barely contain. Jayon rose behind her, weakened but unwilling to retreat. The three hovered in a standoff that felt like the air itself held its breath. Kara, Superman said softly, almost warmly, "Don't do this. I don't want to break you, your family." "You already did," she answered, voice trembling with pain. "You broke everything." Superman's expression flickered not doubt, but irritation. "I gave the world order. I freed it from chaos. You should understand that better than anyone." "That's not freedom," she whispered. "It's slavery." Superman's eyes ignited. "It's survival." He moved first, faster than light, faster than thought, driving into Kara with a strike that sent both of them hurtling upward through the bunker roof and into the night sky. The explosion of shattered earth left Jayon alone in the ruins. He staggered, clutching his chest. He could barely stand, let alone fight, but he wouldn't abandon her. Not now. Above, in the high atmosphere, Kara and Kal collided again, their blows echoing like thunder across the clouds. Kara fought with everything she had: speed, anger, hope, but Kal fought with something far more terrifying: certainty. Every strike he threw carried the weight of a mission he believed was righteous. "You're out of your league, Kara," he growled, gripping her throat mid-flight. "You always were." Her heat vision blasted into his face at point-blank range, forcing him to release her as she tore free and slammed him into a spiraling dive toward the ocean. They crashed into the waves so hard the sea itself steam rose around them as they grappled beneath the surface, currents twisting violently. When they resurfaced, panting, Kara looked around in horror. Entire coastlines smoldered in the distance. Lantern constructs patrolled the skies like twisted guardians. Parademans flew in thick swarms over the Missouri's new walls. The world was becoming unrecognizable, and she realized Superman wasn't alone in this fight. A blinding streak of red lightning crashed beside her. The flash circled her faster than she could see, creating a whirling prison of electrified air. "Sorry, Kara," he said, voice echoing unnaturally. "Can't let you interrupt the plan." Aquaman emerged from the sea behind her, his trident glowing with corrupt Atlantean energy. "Surface dwellers had their chance. The new age belongs to us." Wonder Woman landed in front of her, sword drawn, aura crackling with godlike fury. "Stand down, Kara. Join the Order, or be purged." Then Batman stepped out of the shadows, as if the shadows themselves delivered him. No cape, no theatrics, just a cold, calculating presence. His armor was darker than the night around him, and his voice was deathly calm. "Kara, you can't win. Even if you defeated Kal, you couldn't defeat all of us. There are no heroes left." He meant it. They all did. Every member of the Justice League, every Akonche had once looked up to stood before her as villains. No exceptions, no hope. But then, the water behind her rippled. John rose from the sea, trembling, nearly collapsing, but still standing. "She's not alone," he said. Superman turned, eyebrows lowered in something between annoyance and disappointment. "You should have stayed hidden." John managed a faint, defiant smile. "You taught me better than that." Kara's heart swelled. She stood beside him, ready, outnumbered, outmatched, but not broken. Batman stepped forward, his voice carrying the final verdict. "This is your last chance. Surrender, or we erase you." Gaon whispered Kara, "Whatever happens next, stay focused. We aim for one thing: break the mind link. If their connection to the corruption shatters, even for a second, I know," she said. "Then they remember who they were." Before they could act, Lantern encased them both in a twisting construct of warped green metal, tightening like a vice. The flash vibrated the air to destabilize their forms. Wonder Woman prepared the killing strike. But Kara wasn't ready to die. She unleashed every ounce of stored solar energy inside her body in a single blast. The explosion tore apart the Lantern construct, sent the Flash spiraling out of control, and forced the others back long enough for Giant to act. Martian Manhunter grabbed Kara's hand, closed his eyes, and thrust his consciousness outward. He didn't attack. He didn't defend. He reached into the corrupted psychic web that bound the League together, and he pulled. The scream that erupted, both physical and psychic, shook the world. Superman clutched his head. Wonder Woman fell to her knees. Lantern's ring flickered violently. The Flash crashed into the waves, howling. Aquaman dropped his trident, roaring in agony. For a single moment, the corruption wavered. But something else happened too. Batman didn't fall. He didn't scream. He simply watched Giant with cold, calculated eyes and smiled. Because he wasn't corrupted by the psychic wave at all. He had chosen this. He stepped toward them as the ocean churned and the League fought to regain control. Did you really think I needed a psychic infection to realize humanity is incapable of ruling itself? Kara's blood ran cold. Batman raised a small device, kryptonite laced with something far worse. Kal is the future of this world, and I'm the one who guides him. He pressed the trigger. The sea around them turned white, and the world changed forever. The ocean erupted in a blinding pulse. A surge of white-green light that tore across the horizon like the birth of a new sun. Kara was thrown back through the waves, her body racked with pain as the kryptonite-infused blast pierced her cells. She struggled to stay conscious, her senses fading in and out like a dying signal. Jion shielded her as best he could, his form flickering, cracking under the radiation. When the blast faded, the world fell silent. Kara opened her eyes slowly. The sea was boiling. The sky was fractured with strange, distorted clouds. And floating above the scorched waves, untouched by the devastation he had unleashed, was Batman. Holding the activated device, like it was the key to creation itself, Superman rose beside him, shaken, weakened, but alive. The kryptonite had injured him, too, but far less than it had wounded Kara. He looked down at her with something unfamiliar in his eyes. Not corruption, not rage. Pity. You fought well, he said, voice quiet. But it's over. Wonder Woman, Lantern, Aquaman, and Flash regained their footing, gathering behind their leaders, corrupted power surging through them once more. Gion collapsed to one knee, barely able to maintain a solid form. Kara hovered weakly, struggling to breathe. The two of them, Earth's last remaining heroes, had nothing left to give. Batman descended toward them with slow, deliberate steps across the unstable water, as if the ocean itself dared not defy him. His voice was too calm. You tried to save them, he said, to restore what they were. But what they were is the reason the world kept breaking. Kara shook her head, coughing through the kryptonite poisoning. You twisted everything. You let this happen. I improved everything, Batman corrected. Corruption didn't change us. It revealed us. It freed us from weakness, from emotion, from the illusion of choice. He knelt before her. And when this world rebuilds, it will remember this moment as the day its last heroes fell on. The new age began. Superman hovered behind him, arms crossed, eyes glowing faintly. The corrupted League formed a dark circle around their two fallen opponents. There was no escape, no miracle, no last-minute salvation. Jion placed a trembling hand on Kara's shoulder. We failed. No, Kara whispered, her voice breaking. We didn't fail. We resisted. Even when everyone else fell, we resisted. Batman stood again, raising his hand for the final strike. Resistance, he said, is irrelevant. He lowered his hand. But just before the corrupted League unleashed their fatal blows, something happened. Not a bright light, not a savior, not a reversal of fate. A sound, a rumble beneath the earth, a shift in the air, a flicker of something neither corrupted nor pure, something old, something forgotten, something that even Batman hadn't accounted for. The ocean began to glow with an otherworldly light. The corrupted Justice League froze. Even Batman hesitated. Superman narrowed his eyes. What is that? Kara felt it first, a surge of energy, older than Krypton, older than the Messiah, older than Atlantis. It pulls through the sea like a heartbeat. Gion whispered. No, it cannot be. The water split, not by force, not by power, by presence. A massive shadow rose beneath the surface, stretching across miles. The sky trembled. The corrupted League stepped back for the first time since their fall. Batman's composure cracked. Superman's fists tightened. Wonder Woman lowered her sword. Kara's breath caught in her throat. Gion's eyes widened with a fear he had not felt in centuries. From the depths of the ocean, a colossal figure began to rise, one who had been watching, waiting, and judging. And the world realized the corrupted Justice League was not alone. Their reign was not guaranteed. Their victory was not absolute, because something far greater, far older had awakened, and it was not on their side. The world they believed they controlled was about to challenge them, harder than any enemy ever had. The story was not ending. It was only descending into a darker chapter, a chapter where the conquerors would face a force even they could not imagine, a force that did not come to save humanity. It came to judge it, and the corrupted Justice League would discover, for the first time, what it felt like to be powerless. The fall of all heroes was only the beginning. The rise of something far worse had just begun.